And we're back. Welcome to Workflow. And in today's workflow, we're going to talk about Lightroom, Photoshop, and how we use them in our drone photography workflows. So we'll cover a few differences between Lightroom and Photoshop, maybe a little bit how we learned, what we needed to learn about these two, and how do we use these tools to deliver whatever we need to deliver to our clients and why. But before we do all that, let me ask you a question.
Ready. I am ready for the question.
So you kind of hit the ground running with the whole drone photography.
Mm-hmm.
Did you use anything before Lightroom or Photoshop to actually edit your pictures or to work on your...
No, I was just an Instagram geek before that. That was it.
Also, you used the Instagram filters.
That was it.
Okay, cool.
And some of the minor editing, but I didn't really have any idea what I was doing.
All right. Did you ever use like the DJI app?
No.
No, for like any of that, or the iPhone tools, like download it to your iPhone and...
Actually, you know what? The first thing I ever did, I tried to edit with the DJI app, and that's when I learned what a micro SD card is and why you need it.
It gives you a little more options. Yeah. So but we'll cover the formats and the DNG, the RAW, and the JPEGs in another segment and explain the difference between that. You're right. You have a little more data in your DNGs into the RAW, so it's better to get started. So you didn't really use anything beyond the basic filter.
No.
All right. At which point did you feel a need to get into some editing or to start grading your photos? How quickly you discovered that, okay, I can, this in the air, I can take pictures, they look decent, but now I need to get serious about editing?
The first photo that I took with my drone, I should actually try and find that.
Okay.
Well, I took the first photo, and I was just wondering, why does this look so terrible?
Okay.
Competition wasn't even a thing I was thinking about. It was just, why does this look like trash? But anyway, so I started looking around, and that's when I found the Multi-Rotor podcast.
Oh.
And
cool.
And then I heard you guys talking about Adobe Lightroom on there, and so I looked it up. And
so you looked for a little help, or how to get your pictures, how to get some help with it. So why did you choose Lightroom and Photoshop?
Because that's what you told me to do.
Oh, awesome! All right.
And I also, as I was, looking into what these editing platforms are, which ones I should use, that was pretty much every answer I got from anybody. Was that.
You know why I told you to do it?
Because that's what you were doing?
Yep, exactly. I couldn't tell you otherwise.
Yeah.
There are some other editing programs now, and you know what? If you're looking to share on a social media, and what you're using the drone for is quickly take a picture, do a quick editing, get it out there, then Photoshop and Lightroom actually have an app for your phone now and for your tablet, so you can download the drone picture into your device and...
Limited what you can do with it, though.
Yeah, you won't have the DNG, you won't have the RAW, but if you get it close enough out of the drone, like knowing that what you're going to be doing, and you just need to do some minor tweaks, you can also do the Lightroom and Photoshop. And that will also sync it into your library, so you will have it on your computer, at least their version of the image there.
I don't know when they switched over, but that's maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom, you had to buy a license, and it's expensive. I think it was a few $1,000s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
around there.
It was a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, now they have the Creative Cloud, and it's only $9.99 a month.
You can subscribe to the tool, and then you can add other tools.
Yeah, anybody can afford that. If you have a car, you go do 2 Uber rides, and you paid for your.
Yeah, and it updates, and you get the cloud, and you get a lot. It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's the best you can get.
But before they did that, I actually started, when I got into this, I started in Apple Aperture. Did you ever?
No.
I don't think they support it anymore. I don't even think it comes with your.
I've honestly never even heard of it.
With your operating system. I'm not surprised. I think it went away. It was a good program. It gave you we had like the editing capabilities of Lightroom minus the library management tools that Lightroom gives you. So it was like a stripped down. But it was enough for what I needed, because back then these were like maybe pre-4 GH2 times. So I had a GoPro. So the only way I really got the stills were like the screenshots of the GoPro video for the most.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really do much with it either. But it was when I got to the SLR cameras that kind of felt the need to do a little bit better. Because it was like, I'm looking at all these other drone guys and like, wow, these pictures, these are really gorgeous. Need to step up my game. And the one way to do it was exactly do that. Get into grading, get into the editing and the post. Not cheating, but just...
No, you're not cheating.
Helping it out a little bit. Make sure we tell the story well. So how did you learn what to do in Lightroom?
Oh, how did I learn?
Yeah.
Pushing buttons.
Pushing buttons?
Yeah, pushing buttons, moving sliders.
So pretty intuitive.
Playing with it.
What about Photoshop?
Photoshop, I had to take a class.
Okay. Where did you find a class?
Lynda.com.
Lynda.com?
And I have another one on creativelive.com. It's a little more robust.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen, that's what I do. I don't do classes. I look up. So my class was Joe Papa, really, through osmosis. Alexia, my better half, actually, she's a graphic designer and she works,
great.
Photoshop, Illustrator, all that. So she teaches me a lot. And Google is my friend. I look for specific tasks. How do I clip this? How do I replace the sky? How do I blah, blah, blah?
Oh, I still do that.
Yeah, so little by little. I know Colin Smith, a friend of ours. He has a really good courses on Lightroom and Photoshop, and I've looked at some of his lessons that he does, and he explains it well. And he does it all the time too. He's a real photographer and a drone photographer, and out in California, a really nice guy. I would recommend his courses. Not a paid ad. This is not a, but it's an endorsement of somebody who I find really helpful in this. I think his thing is Photoshop Cafe. Yeah, Photoshop Cafe. Yeah. So if you guys are into the courses, that's the one I would recommend because I find it helpful. Now, in the workflow, what's the basic difference between Lightroom and Photoshop? What do you use the Lightroom for?
Lightroom I use I actually use mainly Lightroom. I don't do a lot of Photoshop.
Okay, same here, actually.
But Lightroom is about the file management.
Lightroom is a great library management tool, as you said. So you can, the metadata, you can do a copyright content, you can do a lot actually to that. It also it lets you create collections. It lets you create smart collections by date, by locations. It looks up a metadata. It lets you look up pictures by their location on a map. So it's great from that standpoint. It also gives you some really powerful set of editing tools. Anything from basic exposure through like white balance, the dehaze function.
Lens profiles,
noise reduction, any kind of cropping. So it gives you basically the color grading tools that Photoshop gives you.
I think it's more user friendly though from the beginning.
Because you don't have to choose the tool and what to do with it and manipulate. It gives you enough to do a good job for everything you need for basic grading. Even some spot corrections like cloning and stuff, it does have some basic functionality like that. It lets you apply filters just to different sections of the photo. So it's pretty powerful. What it also does for you, and you talked about it a bit too, is the sync function where you can synchronize the metadata and you can synchronize the settings across the collection. So what you're doing, say you just did a real estate shoot and you have 30 pictures, right? So you import them into Lightroom. Let's just say 10 of them are from high above and they're roughly the same. So you grade one the way you need it, do your basic adjustments, and then you can just sync that across the next line of images. So you don't have to do one by one. You don't have to import one by one. In Photoshop, Camera Raw, if you import, gives you some very basic tools, but it's one by one. I don't know about you. When I come back from a shoot, I may have a couple hundred pictures. I mean, if you shoot a couple thousand, if you're shooting panels, one by one is not a good proposition. I need to have them lined up next to each other.
Yeah, you can organize them by capture time, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
If you're doing the automated exposure bracketing, you can find your shots right there.
Yeah, because they're lined up by the 3s or 5s. And that's I'm happy you touched that because what it also lets you do, it lets you put together HDR photos right there from the bracketed shots that you do with your drone or regular camera, to that matter. And it also lets you put panoramics together, which is awesome. I think that's great.
Awesome.
You just select them. You literally hit what? Control M to merge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Control H for the HDR and Control M
for the panoramics, and it just does it for you. Few little adjustments, and it does a really reasonable job. I mean, most of the panels I put together, I don't go past Lightroom unless something gets messed up and I need to kick it over to Photoshop or the Color 360 or whatnot. It gives you this powerful set of tools. And I think the last thing about a Lightroom before we move on to the Photoshop is the export functions, the batch exporting, which is really powerful because you can very easily set file types. You can set the file sizes because reality is, let's say you have an Inspire, right? And you do a panoramic with it with the X5S 25 millimeter, go out in town and you come back with something that may be big. So if you export that as a TIFF or original file or even regular JPEG in that size, you're going to come up with something that could be pushing 300 megs in one picture, megabytes easily. Yeah. So if you're sharing that or sending that to the clients, unless they're trying to print a billboard, which is a different workflow, I wouldn't even bother trying to putting that in Dropbox and sending that out if it's something that goes online because you're just going to make everyone's life miserable. Also, when you're putting it on your website, you don't want anything big, and that slows your website down. Social media, any of that, I mean, they compress images, but I wouldn't want original pictures floating out there unless it's necessary. It lets you create smaller versions of files. It lets you watermark. It lets you create custom watermarks. So if you want a logo in a corner, you can upload an image. You can set it up as a template and just add it to anything. And it lets you set custom names under which it exports the files that you select. I really like that workflow because if I say I do a real estate shoot, I'll send the clients 2 sets, right? I'll send them the originals or edited originals, but regular size. So my 4x3s from, say, the X5 camera that are pretty large. They could be 20 megabytes a pop. And then I send them the web version that I make smaller. I shrink them to a percentage, right? For web, you need a large image. All you need is 1400 by 930 or whatever the 3x2 is. And you just export it like that, and everybody's happy because now you have something that's a meg or smaller, so they can actually use it and upload it to wherever they're uploading the MLS and all that. Lightroom gives me the ability to do all that. Batch management, some really good grading, HDR, and panoramics. Now, Photoshop. What do you use Photoshop for?
Not much.
Not much? All right. You're
You're
a drone photographer. You do, so what do you...
Sky replacement.
Okay.
That's where I do that.
Yeah.
And I would, what else do I do? It's seriously, it's very limited to what I do.
How do you, I'm not looking for step by step, but what do you use to replace the sky? Is it a blending option between the layers, or how do you get around
the if gray.
Yeah, if gray on the blending is really cool. Yeah, that's powerful. It's good.
Yeah.
One little trick, fake HDR, right? If you guys already are working with Lightroom and Photoshop, do the right click in a Lightroom.
To do what though?
And it will say edit in. One of the options on the menu that pops up will say edit in Adobe Photoshop. Kick that over to Photoshop. Grade your picture first. So pull down the highlights, your shadows, deal with whatever you need to deal with. Do edit in Photoshop. Once the picture opens in Photoshop, hit File and Save. Do that. And what that does, it saves a TIFF version of the file back in the Lightroom, but now your tools, your grading tools are reset. So you can push down the highlights a little bit more and you can push up the shadows. You can do them all the way because it deteriorates the picture, but you can get it to the point where it gives you that HDR look. So if you guys are already using these tools, do try that. It's a quick tip. All right.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I do that all the time. I call it a fake HDR look. It's helpful. Besides of replacing the sky, what I use the Photoshop for is if I need to do labels in the pictures. So let's say I'm doing a real estate shoot and somebody's trying to say, hey, can you outline the property? Because we're selling 500 acres of land, completely indistinguishable from anything else that's around. And we've had properties. I've had 1,000-acre property that somebody wanted a picture of. You're basically taking a picture of a bunch of fields and woods and meadows, and if you give that to the client, they'll be like, "Thanks," but it's like
which trees?
What am I looking at here?
Yeah.
So it's really cool to get these overlays going with Photoshop pretty quickly. I also use it for some repairs like the local healing or the cloning, because if I say stitch together a panel and I look at the horizon and it has little steps in there, Photoshop gives you a few better tools to deal with that than the Lightroom does.
Yeah.
Or
that's actually where I do my watermarking is in Photoshop.
Yeah. I also use Photoshop on all the graphics I need to do. So if you guys check out our website or the cover art, the graphics are from Alexia, but any of the writing over the covers and all that, it's Photoshop. You get to pick the font, you get to whatever you want.
Yeah, or let's say you want to make a photo collage. That would be a good place to do it.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In Photoshop, you can decide your artboard size by pixel.
Oh, totally.
And you can't do that in Lightroom, right?
No. Well, you can export, you can resize things to the width.
But you're not gonna. It's not gonna tell you 4,000 pixels by 3,000.
No, it will. You can on export.
Okay.
You can set resize, or you can you can both resize or you can crop. So you can do that in Lightroom, but not as easily in Photoshop.
Yeah.
You can. Photoshop is nice because you have an idea what your artboard looks like, and so if you're placing multiple images or images and text, you're starting with end in mind, so you're correct. And where this is important, so say you have a website. We talked about building website a little while ago, and your theme only accepts, not only accepts, but pay attention to what your theme works the best with, because it may crop some pictures that in a way that you may not like. Also, you're thinking that I'm going to upload this beautiful big panorama for the header or the slider on my website, and it may look great on your regular site on the desktop, but then you go to a mobile and you discover that it just crops like a tiny little section. And now whoever gets to the mobile site only sees like a couple clouds or whatever. You kind of have to know what your website theme works with. For example, the Drone Photography Podcast website, the images that it works with for the most is 1400 by 935. They're 3x2s, right? I got to work with that because then I also need the covers for the YouTube, and YouTube accepts 16 by 9s. So they're 16 by 9, 720 by 1280, right? That's their ideal size for YouTube. Very small. I do it all the time. I can back it up. So if you're doing a cover shot for your Vimeo video or YouTube Vimeo, it's 1280 by 720. That's the best size. Right. That's your 16 by 9. The website's 3x2, so 1400 by 935. And they may seem like a small sizes, but you got to think speed. If it's a YouTube cover, by the time somebody's watching it on cell phone screen, it's tiny anyway, so you don't need 4K HD, you don't need 20 megapixel thing that will take forever to load. If you start with end in mind and you know that, okay, the ideal size for my website is 1400 by 935, you can create an artboard and then you can place anything correctly before you export it, correct? Yeah.
So like a good summary of all of this. So you take your photos.
Yeah.
Kick them into Lightroom.
Import them. Don't kick anything.
It's just my
Micah's
my
workflow.
Terminology.
I'll be kicking things until I get some cute pictures.
No, so you import your photos into Lightroom.
In Lightroom.
You do your metadata, your keywords,
create your collection.
Yeah, create a collection. You do your editing, and then let's say you want to go to your website now, and now you want to say you took a winter shot, a spring shot, and a fall shot, and you want that for your banner or something at the top of the page.
Yeah, or you're doing a video, or you want to put text over the banner.
So now you take those photos, bring them into Photoshop, and you do that editing, export it, and then you upload that to your website. So that's kind of the workflow
That's kind of the workflow there. And if you're looking to get into graphics or cinemagraphs or anything, Photoshop is a good thing to have around for that.
Right.
All right.
That's the next thing I need to learn.
So that is the difference between Lightroom and Photoshop, and how do we apply them in our workflows. For this, guys, if you need to reference this anytime in the future, you can just go to dronephotographypodcast.com and you can hit the little magnifier glass in the right top corner if you're in your cell, and just type in Lightroom or Photoshop or editing, and this will come up. You can find all the other segments right there too, neatly organized.